used to issue out a warning. She'd say, Billy, don't you run so fast. Might fall on a piece of glass. Okay.
I think so. I think we're good.
Yep. All right, recording. Sounds good. All right, so today is the 23rd of July, 2002. I'm here at CSUB interviewing Billy Haynes. If you could spell out your name for the record.
Haynes, Haynes.
And your first name?
Billy, Billy.
Sounds good. And do you consent to this interview?
I consent to the interview.
Excellent. All right, let's get started. So, sort of in your own words, we've gone through your biography a bit that you gave us, but like, how did you get started in music?
Well, it was a friend of mine, Luther Davis, who was another local musician. He befriended me, and he was already playing in bands, and he encouraged me to start singing in the bands that he was in. So that's how I got into it, was just being a singer. I'd go and sing with his band, sing 2 or 3 songs a night. And then the bass player got drafted into the Vietnam War, and they needed a bass player. And the bass player was kind enough to leave his bass and amplifier for me to play in the band. And that's how I got into music.
Sounds great.
That was around 14. I was about 14 when that happened.
What year was that?
Oh, I would say maybe 64, maybe. 64.
So you play in a lot of different genres. You didn't get started in R&B or blues later, right?
Well, actually, I started, I played in Mexican-American bands, and so I used to play on the east side quite a bit at the Druids Hall, the Fraternal Hall, the Druids Hall, all of these different places, and we played a lot of wedding dances for the Hispanic community. And so I learned how to play Latin music first, like corridos and cumbias and stuff like that. And that's how I started. And then I would sort of like, with the 2 or 3 songs that I would sing, I would be sort of like the R&B flavoring of that group, singing, whatever hits that were hits back in those days. Mm-hmm. So that's what I used to do. That's how I got involved.
But now you do blues. How'd you get, you do R&B and you do blues. How'd you get into that?
Well, I'm a real big R&B fanatic, and so once I started becoming more involved in the music, I wanted to have my own thing going, and so I got with some local guys, specifically Richard Rugnao and Johnny Diastato, and we formed a group called the Original Souls, and then that's when everything started taking off. That was, I would say that was around maybe 66 that we got together, and then by 69 is when we did the Battle of the Bands, and that from that point it was stardom from then on out.
Mm-hmm. So you said in 69 you had the Battle of the Bands at the Hollywood Bowl, right?
Well, it started it was what they call the Broadway Battle of the Bands. Remember I don't know, you probably don't remember the Broadway department store, but they were statewide, and they had a Battle of the Bands, and so basically all the bands from like Bakersfield, wherever they had a Broadway store, they would compete, and then if you win in your local town, then you would go to the Hollywood Bowl and compete with all of the other bands around the state. So that's what we beat here in Bakersfield, and then we went to the Hollywood Bowl and we won there as well. And the grand prize was to be an opening act for Gary Puckett and the Union Gap, which was a big band back in '69, and plus a record contract, and then Cafe Radio, the local radio station here at that time, was having what they called a Cafe Caravan of All Stars. And because we became notable in town, we started doing that a lot. And we were pretty much the premier R&B band around this town for quite some time, you know.
And before the interview started, you mentioned that you performed with quite a few acts. We know you performed with Tina Turner, but what sort of acts did you perform with?
Oh, after I left town?
Yeah.
Oh. Well, after I was extremely lucky because when I left Bakersfield, I think I was in LA for maybe a year before I got the job with Tina Turner. And then after that, I left Tina to go play with Lou Rawls. So I was with Lou Rawls for quite a few years. And then after that, I became what they call a society band leader. And what I did, I put my own band together. And well, before that, actually, after Lou Rawls, we put a band together and we were on Star Search. And we were finalists on Star Search. And we toured quite a bit. And unfortunately, the times and the things, you know, musicians do, that band was not successful because of drugs and alcohol and things like that. So I moved on and started my own band. And I became what you call a society band leader around Los Angeles. And I played, you know, I performed for like the movie studios. I did a lot of things for ABC. I worked a lot for Vin DiBona, who has America's Funniest Home Videos. I used to do their rap parties and things like that. And so I did a lot of that, and I worked with so many other, you know, known artists, Chaka Khan and different people like that. I even Little Anthony from Little Anthony and the Imperials. And the list, you know, if I have to think about it, because you don't really think about who you're working with when you're out there doing the hustle, is what I call it. Mm-hmm. But suffice it to say that I've worked with quite a few people, quite a few people.
And you said that you left Bakersfield in '76. Did you have any of your favorite like local artists from here?
Well, when you say favorite, I know, you know, there were musicians here who were influential to me. I mean, there's a guy named Johnny Gomez, who actually was one who really taught me how to play a guitar. And then Luther Davis, the one I mentioned earlier, was the one that got me into music. And then as far as local musicians, I mean, I would say the guys that were working at the Elks Club and the Cotton Club, they were my influences, and so they are obviously my favorite musicians. And I mean, there's people like L.C. Killebrew and Good Time Charlie. I mean, there's all kinds of people like that I could, you know, refer back and have good thoughts about, you know, their performances as musicians.
And you said that you lived in eight years in the Netherlands. How'd you get over there?
Well, I had, well, like I told you, I became a band leader in Los Angeles, and then I got a call to go to the Middle East. Now, this is, you know, I got to Europe via the Middle East. But I spent about 10 years in the Middle East and playing in Bahrain and the United Arab Emirates and Oman, and I was quite successful there. And one of the people that I worked with in one of the hotels lived in the Netherlands, and they invited me to bring my band over to establish a club in a town in the Netherlands. And they made me an offer I couldn't refuse. And so I moved over there. And plus I have family there as well. My son lives in the Netherlands. And so that was a good way to be there, good reason to be there. And so, yeah.
And you said you came back in 2010.
Mm-hmm.
Would you mind sharing why?
Well, just that. Well, my band that I took over there, they were all Americans, and that was fine, but obviously things happened and that band dissolved while I was there, but I was determined to stay. So I stayed and I worked with Dutch musicians. And honey, they don't have it like we got it when it comes to music. And, we're Americans, and Black American music is a specialized art. I mean, I've made my living the last 50 years playing Black American music. And our music is known in the jungles of Africa and in Holland. So, and everybody loves R&B music, but to play it is, so to make a long story short, I was dissatisfied musically. Now, I did get into playing in front of orchestras. They have a lot of orchestras in the Netherlands. And so I would be this R&B influence in these orchestras. And when they have these giant concerts and things like that. But that's not what I do. I don't do it for the money. And that, I made money doing that, but that's not what I do. I do it for the love of the art. And so I had to come back and be with my people. That's truly what happened.
This is a question that I usually ask at the end, but I'll ask it now. What is your sort of favorite music or number to perform out of your usual set?
It's got to swing. It don't matter. As long as it's swinging, it's good. It's all good to me because, I've, like I said, I've played with the Funk Brothers, who are the renowned musicians that played all on the Motown hits and everything else, which I admired. But I also played with the Buckaroos for 11 years. Mm-hmm. And as long as the music is swinging, it don't matter to me. Mm-hmm. But it's got to feel good. And I have no favorite. As long as it's swinging, it's all good to me.
Yeah. So Bakersfield is known for this sort of Bakersfield sound that's very country. Do you have any sort of, thoughts about both the Bakersfield sounds and music outside the Bakersfield sound in Bakersfield?
Thoughts?
Maybe you feel like a certain way about being underrepresented, or?
Well, I think as far as Bakersfield is concerned, the highlight is the Bakersfield sound. Now, I'm going to be very candid with you. Coming up and growing up in Bakersfield, we were not privy to the Bakersfield sound, and so I didn't really give it a whole lot of thought. But after coming back and being with the Buckaroos, as a matter of fact, I'm releasing an album this year that's co-produced by one of the Buckaroos, Jim Shaw. So I think the Bakersfield sound is pretty much restricted to Buck and Merle. That's the Bakersfield sound to me. And all the other musicians that were in Bakersfield, there hasn't been a lot said about them. Mm. But I think there's been some really great musicians that came out of this town. Mm. But there's just nothing's been written about it too much. Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned a couple of your inspirations, but you also mentioned just now musicians that have come out of Bakersfield. Who would you say, who do you think of immediately?
Well, there was Charles Weldon. Charles Weldon he was not only a great singer, and there was a group called the Paradigms, and they had a hit record back in I would say the early 60s. And he went on to head New York City Black Actors Group. He was a phenomenal Bakersfield person. There was a guitarist by the name of Billy Moland who went on to work with many, many great artists. I'd have to think about that, but there's been a lot. There's been a lot of musicians that have went on to play with great artists but never got the recognition of being a part of that. You know, so.
And when you started playing, what would you say your friends and your relatives, maybe your parents, thought about you playing?
Are you kidding? I have a good story. Back in the day, I didn't get much book learning because I was too busy playing music. And so back in the 60s, there was a thing called the Job Corps. So I went to the Job Corps and I got my diploma. I came out and went to college for a while. And then I got a job with AT&T. And I quit that to go do a 6-nighter at a club. And my family thought I had completely lost my mind, that I would, you know, forsake a a solid job like AT&T. It was called Western Electric back then, to go play music. But I have no regrets. But no, I had no support from my family. They thought that was foolishness.
And now, did they still?
Well, I think my track record proves that I did okay, you know. It didn't hurt me too bad, you know. I've been fortunate enough to travel the world and get paid for it, and meet and perform with some of the greatest artists ever in the world. I mean, I'm proud to say that I was Tina Turner's first bass player. You know, I was not with Ike and Tina Turner. I was with Tina Turner, and that's where I got my schooling, was from her, and that bond is still existing to this day. So I have no regrets. You know, I tell everybody that if I'd have stayed with AT&T, I'd probably have 2 homes and a motor home, and I'd be a alcoholic wife beater, probably, you know, because that's not who I was. This is who I am.
So you travel around the world, what would you say was your favorite venue to play at? You said you were in the Middle East, in Cambodia, right, and in the Netherlands?
I think I can say this with all honesty. The most memorable place I've ever played was a Cambodian orphanage. That was the most memorable place I've ever played in my life. It was such an honor to be there and to be a part of that, and to stand up on the stage and see those kids and see them smiling, and I'll never forget it. Never forget it. It was, you know, and I've played Carnegie Hall, but that incident, you know, and I replaced Ricky Martin. Ricky Martin canceled, and that's the reason why I played at that orphanage. But that's the most memorable performance, I think. Also, we played. We were the first Western band to play in Croatia after the fall of communism. So that was another memory, and we performed on a children's television show, and that was pretty special too. I got a lot of specials. A lot of specials.
You mentioned your son lives in the Netherlands. Would you say that, did you pass on maybe any musical education?
Well, he just graduated from college last year, and he's now a drama teacher at a arts high school in Amersfoort. So I say I'm very proud of him. Very, very proud of him. And
well, I think that's pretty good for now. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming in and doing this. If you have any final thoughts that you want to...
No, I just think it's great that the CSUB is doing this. I think it's great. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Wish we had an amp.